So I bet you've seen the runtime of this video already, and you're wondering how much I could actually talk about worms inside of Elden Ring that people haven't already said. So I guess this is my chance to prove that to you. So instead of having you slog through the whole thing in order to get to my point, I know some people are already scanning around. Let's start with the abstract. There's a physical chemical theory about the origin of life, essentially being an information ratchet wherein it is easier to do one irreversible process than it is to, reverse that process. And so, by virtue of that, some chemical landscapes, even though they're not what thermodynamics would prefer, like crystals, still follow some sort of different wisdom than the wisdom of stone. And these allow you to proceed with basically any reaction, no matter whether or not it actually follows what we would call the normal laws of thermodynamics and free energy landscape. I know I'm already losing people because this is an Elden Ring video, but the point being here is that the worms represent that Miyazaki knows this, and I can prove it. Okay, disclaimer, he may not know this, but he has at least intuited enough of it that this paper is an extremely useful comparison to Elden Ring to try and understand it. Because when we discuss things like the Crucible and the origin of life and what primordial life looks like, we're kind of talking about this. And it's gonna look like worms turning into trees, turning into dragons, turning back into worms. This time worm is spelled with a Y, though, if you catch my drift. So if you're ready, let's get started. So I am going to be referencing a lot of item descriptions and lore just in general, and I tried several times versions of the script that actually have me sitting down and reading out every single thing, and none of them are going to get finished ever. So I need to do this this way, and I'm very sorry if that bothers you. I was in the middle of saying, yes, I know I could literally look it up and just read it out, and then I did. And remembrance of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, hewn into the Erdtree. Rykard took the form of a giant serpent that he might devour, grow, and live eternally. I understand. The road of blasphemy is long and perilous. One cannot walk it unprepared to sin. Essentially, what we need to ask is gold really all that different from impenetrable thorns? Does gold actually come from the Erdtree? Does it come from the Scadutree? And do we know this for certain, on the basis of several items that tell us this explicitly? Let's find out. Hello there. Thank you for clicking on my awful thumbnail. I had an intro recorded here, and I'm going back and editing it now, and I just kind of deleted that whole intro because today is December 13th, 2024, and I recorded that yesterday. So there's a new Elden Ring trailer, huh? Be sure to stay tuned for the end of the video where I find out that Night Rain fucking exists. So, I think to get us started, we should really just jump right in and talk about Gideon. And by Gideon, I mean his scepter. Scepter of the All-Knowing. Scepter in the form of a hand grasping a pearl. Signature weapon of Sir Gideon Ofnir, the All-Knowing. The pearl stands for the world, the heavens, and an eye, representing the many forms of knowledge never fully attainable. Even knowing that, the All-Knowing's hand yet grasps for. Hi, my name is Jenny Azoth, and welcome to my show, I apparently have, where I spend way too much time dissecting the lore of Elden Ring using quantum mechanical scientific papers that came out almost a decade ago. This was a terrible idea. Start with the obvious. There are 13 Miquella's crosses, 11 Everjails, and 2 of those Miquella's crosses can be directly attributed to Saint Trina rather than Miquella through the Nectar Blood Virgin. What's more, even if you include Saint Trina, the number's still a line. Only 2 of the Miquella's crosses also describe non-physical concepts, those being my doubt and vacillation, and my fears. Considering Saint Trina is canonically what he abandons when he abandons his love, when he says he abandons his love, that is still a flesh and blood thing to physically leave, much like any other parcel of flesh, including his eye. It's quite notable, then, that the place we find his broken rune is also the place we find the Scadutree avatar, who has the same luminous, golden eyes that we see on chosen consort Radon, indicating these eyes aren't just golden, but those of a demigod. There are also 11 stones in each worm. Put a pin in that, we'll come back to it. So, if we view the world as a coin with 2 halves, as with Renala and Relana, Aurelia and Aureliette, or indeed Marika and Radagon, we can see that dualities pervade this world and moreover are also visible from any given world adjacent to that world. Visible from the heavens, so to speak. So if we imagine that each pearlescent moon hanging in the heavens is in fact a world acting like an eyeball with which that world may view all of the others, we can do this pretty reasonably as well. You can check the finger runes and look for opalescent heart tears in the seeds next to the fingers. Having done this, we can now understand quite a bit, including the fingers, the creepers, the lampreys, the moons, light, dark, and twin, the role that the fingers play with respect to the Nox. We can even look at this crucible up in the mountains and examine 2 trails going off one way, 1 trail going off the other. We can also observe that the dragons, Baal and Placidusax, each lost pieces of themselves. Baal lost 1 leg, and Placidusax lost 2 heads. All of this is beginning to paint a picture that there's some great cosmic sort of almost diorama going on here, where each layer of the story is being told as it is affecting each other layer. And one of them is situated literally at the top. Faramazula, the royal city from the ancient ruins, is sitting at the very top like a crown jewel, and its pieces are crumbling, falling onto everything else, rotting, as it were. If you ascend to the top of the moonlit altar and find the cathedral of Manus Celis, you can look in the sky and see that there are in fact 2 moons, one of them light, one dark. Twinned moons, if you will. Given that this is the same game series that produced a game where you can ride an elevator up through the top of the highest peak in the world and find yourself in the bottom of a lake of fire, in molten lava, I don't think it's that far off to say that it's possible that the ancient dragons and their battle echoes basically throughout all of the rest of the lands between constantly, and that the effects of that are felt eternally. It should also be noted that in the DLC, if you ascend to the very pinnacle of the ancient ruins of Rao and look towards the tree from the Church of the Bud, you can see that there's holes in the baldachin. The veil, it appears to part, and you can see the actual real sun shining through if you look at the right time of day. Cool! So this whole place is illusory. That makes sense. The finger mimic, yeah? It emits that sort of aura that makes you see illusions, much like the illusory blades or the illusory Erdtree. You know, it's starting to seem like these illusions are a part of the worlds eclipsing each other and stealing the other's hue, as if there was an admixture of silver and gold, like Electrum, and the hue of the metal got washed out. I wonder if that's a theme: eclipse, and washing out the hue, and hey, what are you doing here, Griffith? Now, let's take that pin out from earlier and start referring to these a bit more helpfully in tree terms for consistency. You'll see why this is consistent with the worms in a bit. Hang in there. So, let's start by calling these moons, stars, meteors, any sort of spheroidal celestial body descending from the heavens, as a type of seed, or bud. Let's include jars, orbs, and eyes in this as well. A world, a heaven, and an eye, so to speak. Let's now imagine that a stone tree might grow from a stone seed such as this. And further, let us imagine that these trees form the bases of entire worlds. That wouldn't be so hard to imagine, will it? So then, what does it mean when Ymir tells us to beckon Metyr, and reacts joyously with the progressive darkening of the stars that results? Is this the experience an orb might have, as a hand begins to reach out to clasp it? Still wondering how this is about the worms? Well, to be more accurate, we should define worm as an incomplete tree, and I'll explain why. I know, they're called lookout stones, or mihari ishi, but my point is that even such materials can and have been scientifically referred to as trees which exhibit worm-like motion since 2015. Let's examine, briefly, this paper and what it can tell us about these stones and the essence of life itself. No, really, seriously, it's pretty cool. Let's check it out. Alright, you see, it's only about 30 seconds. Tree formation. So here we have a ring electrode and a source. These beads are all conductive, so is the oil. And we are inducing a current over this. And watch how the beads begin to form that tree shape, almost like the worms. And then, there, as soon as it clicks, that's that tree structure. And it isn't just a tree structure, it's also recruited basically every other bead, and it begins to waggle in a worm-like motion. Now, if we take a look at the second one, dynamic tree behavior, constrained, then unconstrained. When constrained, it really looks like those worms, doesn't it? It's just kind of straining against either end, almost like it's stuck in an everjail, and then when you release it, it just kind of starts wiggling its way. Wiggles around. Yeah. And with worm-like motion, it slowly approaches the source until it reaches the closest possible point, where it can then waggle the fastest. Now, there's something interesting that can happen if you do this with gold, specifically. If we're talking about gold trees, I am going to have to separate this, so this will be, I guess, a future video. So, as you can see, if you induce a source and a ground, look, even in the shape of a ring, electrode, with an applied current in the presence of conductive oil and these metallic beads, just like the stone trees from gravel, or the lookout stones from their constituent parts, they automatically form themselves into these swaying tree-like structures when left unconstrained. When constrained, however, these trees, which in this case are trees made of gold, can turn themselves into worms. And if gold is constrained, interestingly enough, it can ripen into a reddish-purple hue. Wonder if we've seen anything like that before. Someone confined inside of a stone tree, maybe an Erdtree, a tree made out of earth. Gold turning to red. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, just like Radagon, we can see these trees transforming into worms when uprooted and confined without a suitable ground. So, sigma is here a measurement of entropy production, and this is the fundamental state that all living systems seek to maximize. This leads to worm-like motion, as observed in both the sentry stones and with the experimental confined trees. They seek a suitable place to plant themselves and wave like trees once more. Where was I? Oh, right, the fingers. Now, let's take a closer look. Oh, shit! Lamprey! Run! Run, 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 run! Okay, now let's actually take a closer look at them this time. God damn lampreys. Getting in the way of me studying the fingers. Hey, what's this? Is that gold? Is this a brain? How am I able to transform into this? Why is the mimic veil named Marika's trickery? Why is the head made of gold but not any other part? Why is they filled with brains? Is my brain made of worms? Is every brain made of worms? Hey, where did these... Is that a dragon? All we can say for sure is that these fuckers definitely fell from space. They might even be pieces of Placidusax that got knocked off during the battle with Baal. Who knows? In any case, as we see with the Gravelstone seal, as well as just by looking at the ancient dragons directly, at the center of all of this is Deathblight and gold. Deathblight turns you to stone and stabs through you with a new tree, like it shot up from the ground and became a part of you, and can be delivered by Godwin's golden lightning, no less. Gold appears to be the interior, while the exterior appears earthen, dusty, in so resembling the very nature of the everlasting trees and the ancient dragons themselves. Impenetrable exterior, golden interior. Red and gold, thorns and tree, shadow and light. The golden epitaph sword is proof enough that Miquella and Godwin were close, that losing him and Radahn caused Miquella to react in the way he did, much in the way that Marika's loss of her home village was a similar catalyst. And back then, she fed herself to the crucible and became a part of the serpent while bearing the qualities of the illusory tree. What? Did I skip some steps? That is what one does at the Divine Gate, you see. You feed yourself to the snake that consumes the world and then become part of the world in doing so. She was a tree and became a part of the serpent, making a tree part of the world. An Erdtree with physical and illusory components like one can see echoed within the Scadutree when standing on the borders of Anir Illim. You stand atop the world, a mountain of corpses elevating you above even the veil that maintains the worldwide illusion, and then pitch yourself into the maw of an incoming star. I wonder if this is why we can see the sun from here. Hey, did you ever wonder why the Greater Will sends stars to the lands between to begin with? How many? At what times? And for what reasons? Now, I know I'm coming in a bit hot with this one, but if you compare Metir, the Scadutree, Rykard, the Elden Beast, Placidusax, yeah, that's why I showed them all earlier, you start to see a pattern, and that pattern is one of reaching your face towards the sky, as if to devour a tribute dropped from the heavens, at which point something always explodes out of them in one form or another, from deathblight to golden rays to entire universes to an actual singularity, a microcosm, which would indeed consume all light around it and darken the stars with its approach. That is, unless you happen to be in the path of the pulsar, one of its two paths that it can pick, where you would be bathed in rays of light. The evidence is indeed quite plentiful this has happened before, with the snakeskin in the Temple of Eglay. Eglay? Let's go with Eglay. Bearing an uncanny resemblance to the one abandoned outside of Bonnie Village. The hand continually renewing its grasp on the world as it learns of it through consumption of the very same. Grows a more distinct face with each passing generation, and in much the same way, one would find such a face protruding at ground level, should that serpent vitrify into a tree. Why does that remind me of the Shaman Village? Mesmer Flame, notably, is a flame that bears a suspiciously serpentine quality, as if flammable snakes are being grown and set aflame. Maybe they're tree branches and roots? Is there even a meaningful difference? If the worlds are spheres, and in the heavens are yet more worlds visible as if looking at the back of another eye along its optic nerve, then, hey, isn't that kind of what the tree looks like? An optic nerve? Food for thought. In any case, gold is clearly the undying blood of these trees, and would be the innards of either a dragon or world tree if you cracked it open. It is also extremely likely that the practice of putting people in jars stems from a desire to grow these golden world trees, as seen with their signature grab attack, as well as with the vast number of empty jars one can find near each Erdtree avatar, but notably not near any worm faces, as if the worm faces grew somewhere else and migrated there, but the Erdtree avatars guard where they stand. If that's why the Erdtree avatars grew, I wonder what grew the Scadutree avatar. Hey, what's this rune doing here? Oh well, probably nothing. Anyways, we can in this way connect the Bonnie Village to the shamans to the jars, and the jars to the shaman village, thereby connecting the existence of jars directly to the minor Erdtree incantation that Marika presumably learned after her encounter with Unalloyed gold, also known as the Elden Beast, at the pinnacle of the lands which would become enshrouded as the lands of shadow. In fact, one could even say that gold lived there already, in the form of the Scadutree, and that the golden star that was sent to the lands between landed in the lands of shadow, and it probably picked up Marika along the way. I wonder if that's why her braid was glowing gold. Is that the sin that it speaks of? In that case, we can say that Marika encountered a golden star after summoning an eclipse, after which she would leave behind one golden braid of her hair at the foot of the grandmother, as confession and prayer alike, interred within a tree, much like herself, interred within a serpent. In that case, we can say that Marika conjured an eclipse, which summoned a golden star from the greater will, to which she fed herself. In other words, one of them is a seed, growing from where it germinated, and the other is a fully grown tree that has been uprooted and has been forced to seek new soil. The soil they seek is inevitably golden, resembling an Erdtree, or indeed the Halig tree, and is why they could take root in any of the jars that achieve sainthood. Now, you'll notice that from the Everjails, these warden trees, for lack of a better term, they drop stones from the ruins. So there's definitely something between Farum Azula and these Everjails as well. I've been showing footage of these Everjails for a while now. If you notice, the sentries aren't always watching the center of any given jail, although many of them are. They're often looking somewhere else, somewhere gold, like an Erdtree or Church of Merit, and their interest in the jail seems to scale with how gold the prisoner is. Look at the Golden Lineage Everjail versus the Cuckoo Everjail as an example. Also note that the final Everjail of 11 lacks sentries other than Black Knife Assassins, further connecting it to the eternal cities of the Nox, and it protects the final gate before the Halig tree. Remember, too, that the Eclipse Shotel was part of an attempt to summon an eclipse and revive the lost soul of Godwyn by way of removal of the hue of the light, echoing the Albinaurics. Oh, wait, he brought Radahn's soul back? Wonder what would cause him to do that. Certainly has nothing to do with unalloyed gold, or, some sort of hope to drive away the scarlet rot. Definitely not. Last but not least, this brings us to the lilies. Trina, Miquella, and Deep Purple, all in progressive states of withering, as if a symbol of abundance slowly rotting from gold to purple, was it? Reddish purple? And that would explain why we only find them in the land of shadow. Deep in the coffin fissure, among the purple lilies and congealed putrescence issuing from the equally stoned sarcophagi that tumble down here to keep them company. Almost like a perverse form of Erdtree burial, or perhaps the other way around. After all, in the age before the Erdtree, death was burned in ghost flame, as we can see mirrored here by the congealed putrescence spell. One to remember, and one to forget, like halves of an hourglass, flipped. The sentries? Worms, are Miquella. There are 11 Everjails, 11 abandoned parts that aren't attributable to St. Trina, 11 abandoned parts that represent physical objects, and exactly one of them is Miquella's eye. Just like the worm's singular eye, and indeed, like wilted gold, it fires rays of deep purple in order to defend St. Trina's flowery grave. Miquella sought to undo what Marika did, which was to flip the world by feeding her tree flesh to the snake in an inversion of what Rykard would one day do, feeding a great rune to the very same serpent in what would amount to be, by this understanding, the ultimate blasphemy, becoming the opposite of God by the same means of creation. Mesmer and Zarias are the obvious outcomes of these dalliances, but let's not get too deep into the egg-laying of it all. We keep talking about eggs and seeds and trees like this, and eventually we're going to wake up at the foot of the Erdtree, burned and bodiless. Point being that Miquella was aiming for something like parthenogenesis, which we can see in plants. In this case, automixis, in which an organism fertilizes themselves rather than being externally fertilized, and in doing so, mirroring Radagon and Marika. In attempting this rather than traditional genesis, he is seeking to abandon his existing lineage, effectively committing himself to confinement as a worm who will forever yearn to become a tree that they can never grow to be, doomed to seek the light without ever reaching it. And it was in this truncated form that he sought to feed himself to the serpent in order to undo the curse. When unflipped, the tree's roots would stop dropping ruins and would go back to the place from which they were obviously removed in the center of the lands between, and presumably the worm faces too would find footing. But the Evergails are tools of the Golden Order, used in their crusade for the Erdtree. The last Evergail ends at the foot of the Halig tree. Ironically, not even the abandoned parts of Miquella found their way there. They appear to be forever wardens, to stand tree watch over their stony graves elsewhere. All because of his god blood indelibly connecting him to all parts of the Golden Order, whether he wants it or not, both the gold of the tree and the order of the beast. The act of becoming a god would indeed become a prison or a jail for him. Trina was right. If you regard a curse as karmic backlash without an explanation being provided, and regard her sin as one of having inverted the world, and this act of inverting the world being one where she turned herself into the fruit of the tree and then fed herself to the eternal serpent, you can see how the rest of the world is damned, how she would fear the omens, the signs that the serpent is going to come out, that the grafting didn't take, that somehow Golden Order will regress into beasthood rather than remaining kind, as it were. Additionally, by tracing the places where the finger mimics can be found and what's around them, for instance, what sorts of ruins, whether or not there are lampreys in the area or finger creepers, we can get a pretty solid idea of why she acted this way, what caused this to happen, what even creates all these illusions in the first place, and how they all stem from the first star that the Greater Will sent. Metir, these illusions seem to have gotten to Ymir as well. Poor Ymir never knew that the fingers were doomed to be stillborn from the start, that somehow they seem to emit this sort of aura that makes you take everything that they say as holy, and don't really need to back it up for some reason. They just exude this aura that takes over your mind and clouds it with these illusions. Wonder how it's doing that. Did you say these are made out of mushrooms? Couldn't have anything to do with the resemblance that Tubulin has to Hyphae, or indeed the root networks of a standard aspen clone, would it? Oh well, like cuttings off of a plant with no hope of germination. Good thing the tarnish stops him and Miquella alike from making the same mistakes. It's always the same curse, the same cycle, the same process of seed to worm to tree, and then regression through rot back to worm to seed to bud again, always occurring when all is melted together into blood and flame. And even that causality too is an illusion of inversion, a mere trick of shadows and mirrors. Miquella, the essence of the tree's abundance, is actively returning to and physically becoming a worm in the process, seeking rot in an attempt to find a way through rather than back, given the way that the Golden Order and its fundamentals of causality and regression proved insufficient to keep it at bay the first time. So which tree was originally the golden one? Was it the Erdtree? Or was that tree originally made of gravelly stone and impenetrable thorn before it was infused with the golden light of the Scadutree? Why do I say the gold of the Scadutree? Well, let's look at the description of the blessed bone shard item. You tell me. A tree can always be found reaching up towards the source, like a sunflower. It is simply the most efficient way to capture radiative energy. Here, and here alone, were moon, sea, and fire, sunlight, ever together. What's that? You watched this video because you wanted to know if Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin had possibly planned this out? I mean, the paper came out in 2015, so he would have had to have been working on this project at least since the release of Bloodborne in order to include this tidbit in any official sense. So, probably not, but who knows? Maybe Miyazaki keeps up to date on theoretical physics. It wouldn't be the first time that entertainment and science advanced in lockstep. Hmm? You're still here? You want to know what I solved? Go ask Gideon. I'm sure he can help you connect the dots. Remember Jurassic Park? Bok Bok? Thank you, Almster, for making Worm Guy, and thank you to Sky, Digital Beef, and TNT Time 1 for donating to my Ko-Fi. You can find the link in the description, as well as links to the full version of this paper. I just read it out in full. You can find my sources in the description as well, and please feel free to check out any of my other videos. They're all worse, every last one. If you're still watching this video, thank you for watching it to the end, even past the music. And Worm Guy will return. Look forward to that. Thank you again to Digital Beef for buying me groceries for this month. When I say that's the end, don't check the time code. Don't check it. This was made by a scientist. Don't check the time code. So really, when you think about it, the stone trees, the century worms, they represent a more fundamental type of life than anything else in the lands between. Nothing else comes even close. How's that for grace of gold, huh? A finger, a world, and a tree, all in one. How about that? What the... Is that a fucking new DLC? Are you fucking kidding me? No, come on. This video took so fucking long. Alright, I'm not actually a good enough writer, and I'm way too much of a science writer to know any other way to handle this. So any of the additional supplemental information that I'm using here, that I've recorded out, which I recorded out as the bare minimum of the stuff that I figured was going to be necessary to understand this particular video if you haven't played Elden Ring or haven't been able to find all these items, and if you have trouble reading a lot of things at once. I wanted to have some sort of audio resource in order to read it out for you, and so I did that, and I don't really have a graceful way to put that in the video, so it's just going to be tacked on here at the end. You can stay for this part, or you can go. So I'll start this off by discussing finger sorceries and related items, starting with Fleeting Microcosm, a finger sorcery of Count Ymir, High Priest, one of the secret hallowed rites. The broken and discarded are fully willing to cling to fleeting simulacra, earning them some modicum of sympathy. Pearlescent Scale, a glassy and glistening fragment of pearlescent hue. Material used for crafting items. Found by hunting lamprey. These retrograde scales are found embedded deep within the skin of lamprey. Fingerprint nostrum. Bolus engraved with whorl-like lines. Craftable item. Boosts mind, intelligence, faith, and arcane at the cost of gradual HP loss. A secret medicine of those who attempt to turn their bodies into fingers. Ingesting causes something to wriggle within. Glinting Nail. Nail stone with shining fingerprints floating above. Craftable item. Uses FP to fling a magic nail that crumbles during flight. Speckled Hardtear. The resulting concoction temporarily raises all resistances and heals all status ailments. Dropped by the worm face that guards the minor Erdtree in Altus Plateau. Fleeting Microcosm, a finger sorcery of Count Emir, High Priest, one of the secret hallowed rites, conjures an image of a microcosm at a foe's feet that pulses with a single wave before disappearing in a burst. Charging enhances potency. The broken and discarded are fully willing to cling to fleeting simulacra, earning them some modicum of sympathy. Staff of the Great Beyond. Staff fashioned from the tail fingers of Metyr, the Mother of Fingers, and the microcosm raised aloft over the crux they form. Catalyst for casting both sorceries and incantations. The Mother received signs from the greater will from the beyond of the microcosm. Despite being broken and abandoned, she kept waiting for another message to come. Old Lord's Talisman, a legendary talisman depicting the ancient king whose seat lies at the heart of the storm beyond time, extends the duration of sorceries and incantations. It is said that the ancient royal city of Faramazula has been slowly crumbling since time immemorial. The Heart of Baal, the biatrial heart of Baal the Dread, dotted with horn-like gravel stones and glistening with deep red liquor. Gorge upon this at the grand altar of dragon communion to absorb Baal's power, the purest form of communion, in the words of its priestess. Gravelstone Seal, sacred seal made from gravelstone thought to be an ancient dragon scale. Enhances dragon cult incantations of the royal capital. The worship of the ancient dragons does not conflict with belief in the Erdtree. After all, this seal and lightning itself are both imbued with gold. Miquella's Needle, one of the unalloyed gold needles that Miquella crafted to ward away the meddling of outer gods. Capable of subduing the flame of frenzy if inherited, allowing one to cheat fate and avoid becoming the Lord of Frenzied Flame. However, the needle is as yet unfinished and can only be used in the heart of the storm beyond time said to be found in Faramazula. Spira, superior sorcery of the Tower Priests, wielded as an incantation of the spiral. Wrap one's arms together and hold them up to the heavens to summon a spiral of light that erupts at the enemy's feet. Column of light persists for as long as the button is pressed. The spiral is a normalized crucible current that, one day, will form a column that stretches to the gods. Spiral Tree Seal, sacred seal of soiled amber engraved with a spiral tree design. Enhances spiral incantations. The majesty of the White Tower, stretching to reach the gods, even inspired a secret faith in the invaders, the people of the Erdtree. Gravel Stone, a small clump of sharp, pointed stones. Material used for crafting items. Such compound stones, found in lands once beset by ancient dragons, are said to be the scales of those very beasts. Pearl Drake Talisman +3. Talisman with a large depiction of a pearlescent dragon. Vastly boosts non-physical damage negation. The ancient dragons who ruled the prehistoric era before the Erdtree would protect their lord as a wall of living rock. So it is that the shape of the dragon has become symbolic of all manner of protections. Rune Arc, a shard of the shattered Elden Ring, grants the blessing of an equipped great rune upon use. Even if no great rune is equipped, it will slightly increase maximum HP upon use. The lower arc of the Elden Ring is said to be the basin in which its blessings pool. Perhaps this shard originates from that very arc. Great Rune of the Unborn, amber egg clutched by Renala, queen of the full moon. Great Rune of Unborn Demigods, perfects those who have been born anew. Children born anew by Renala are all frail and short-lived, crumbling quickly, imperfect beings each and all. Minor Erdtree, secret incantation of Queen Marika. Only the kindness of gold, without order, creates a small illusory Erdtree that continuously restores the HP of nearby allies. Marika bathed the village of her home in gold, knowing full well that there was no one to heal. Remembrance of the Elden Beast hewn into the Erdtree. The power of its namesake can be unlocked by the finger reader. Alternatively, it can be used to gain a great bounty of runes. It was the vassal beast of the greater will, and the living incarnation of the concept of order. Remembrance of the Shadow Sunflower. Remembrance of the Scadutree avatar hewn into the Scadutree. The power of its namesake can be unlocked by the finger reader. Alternatively, it can be used to gain a great bounty of runes. The Scadutree is the shadow of the Erdtree, born of dark notions that bear no sense of order, that twist and bend its stalk, rendering it brittle. Remembrance of Romina, saint of the bud, hewn into the Scadutree. After the church was burned to the ground, Romina discovered a twisted divine element, which she weaved into the baleful scarlet rot. Perhaps then the buds might find somewhere to gain purchase once more, within the scorched remains. Devonia's Hammer. Great hammer wielded by Devonia, longest serving of the Crucible Knights. Weapon forged of primordial gold, marked by its reddish hue and inhabited by ancient holiness. A torrent of life is engraved upon the striking face. Great Sword of Ordovis, one of the two honored as foremost among the Crucible Knights. This sword is imbued with an ancient holy essence. Its red tint exemplifies the nature of primordial gold, said to be close in nature to life itself. Alright, it is at this point that I actually have to call it on this particular search for knowledge. If only because I've already started the red video for primordial gold and the other thing that red is. There's two reds. Look forward to it. The problem is I've already gotten to 35 minutes, and this video is way too long to be a preface to another video that I wrote first. I wrote that one first. It's longer. Oh my god. When will this game stop? When will it release me? Ordovis's vortex is the same as the Euphoria vortex. That's literally the same thing. But the Euphoria, it's the twin blade symbolizing abundance, the secret treasure of the tower. Though the blades fashioned from golden shoots are largely wilted and darkened, their luster can be restored by dealing damage to foes. However, damage dealt to those who live in death will have no such effect. The Euphoria vortex itself is described as using the power of the vortex, violently twirl the armament, dealing multiple slashes directly ahead. The greater the restored luster of the blades, the greater the power of this skill. However, use of this skill will fully consume the blade's luster. And speaking of luster, Great Sword of Damnation. Golden greatsword that once pierced the body of Midra, master of the Mens. Used by the Hornsent in the execution of a damnation like no other. The barbs that pierce the victim from within gently wind around the blade. Golden crux. Leap up and skewer foe from overhead. If successful, the weapon's barbs unfold to excruciate from within. Else additional input releases the barbs in the area. There is something of the golden order in the sight of those fixed upon this crux. Aspect of the crucible. Thorns. Aspect of the crucible that manifested in golden hippopotami. Creates a bristling mass of thorn-like fur on the caster's back before scouring the area by rolling around on the ground. Charging increases the number of rolls in the range of the attack. In an age long past, before this land was enshrouded in shadow, the vitality of the crucible flourished. Remains of this can be seen in the ancient ruins. The other aspects of the crucible being horns, tail, breath, bloom, and wings. So to spare you the whole aside, rose windows, ancient rose windows, they're tinted red with gold. That's gold in there. When gold is nano-sized, that is to say primordial, close to the state in which it was formed, which is like little droplets and whatnot. Or, little metal beads or something. It could be anything, really. Anyways, these thorns or worms or trees or any sort of thing that's related to the crucible in any sort of way, also the Evergails, we can pretty much draw a line directly back to how ancient stained glass is made. For a lot of these, and I'm going to be mining this for a few other videos, unless someone else beats me to it, in which case, a good job with your materials science and engineering degree. In any case, primordial gold is going to be referred to from this point on as red, and I'm also going to be discussing primordial silver and copper, which, by the way, are going to be blue and green/red, respectively. We'll get back to that one. In either case, to round out the last of the item descriptions, Talisman of all Crucibles, a giant mass of intermingling crucible attributes. Reduces damage taken from critical hits and headshots and improves the effectiveness of rolling and backstepping, but also increases damage taken at all times. Rumored to have sprouted upon giants and is known as the mother of crucibles in ancient tower lore. Think we can pretty safely connect that one to red and primordial gold. Yeah, you think maybe we can do that pretty safely? I think we can do that pretty safely. Dear God in heaven, help me finish this fucking video before I actually die. Imagine realizing that this is the only place you can find this lore and you actually have to cite this god-awful video. Like, fucking, I can't imagine. Serpent Amnion. Amnion from the mother's womb, which cradled the poor, unwanted offspring of a repellent birthing ritual. It will never dry out, remaining damp indefinitely. It is described as the amnion from a womb that bore, quote, unintended offspring. Remembrance of Mesmer the Impaler, hewn into the Scadutree. A malevolent snake writhed within Mesmer, and so his very mother plucked out his eye and put in its place a seal of grace. Yet, having done so, her fear compelled her to secret away her child within the realm of shadow, hidden away, keeping company with the original sin, and a hatred that would not be confined. Mesmer's kindling, the kindling that burned inside Mesmer the Impaler, a dark thing eaten away at by a wicked serpent, burns the sealing tree said to be found at the old Rau ruins. Mesmer, much like his younger sister, bore a vision of fire. Sun Realm Shield, shield of honor depicting a city crowned by the sun. It has seen better days. Much like the wear upon the shield, the seat of the sun is long faded away. Malformed Dragon Set, a malformed golden armor set, adorned with various dragon imagery and worn by the misshapen tree sentinels. After the great ancient dragon Grandsax attacked, the sentinels had an epiphany. The only way to truly protect the Erdtree was to become dragons themselves. I will here note, informally, that Mesmer's kindling looks a hell of a lot like the aged ones, the aged untouchables, the winter lanterns. It looks like a winter lantern, okay? Mesmer's kindling looks like a winter lantern. I'm just gonna say it. So that's the worm video, and I think I'm the Joker now. Anyways, go and leave this place. Eyeballs are not safe here. I'm going to add here, thanks to Zuli the Witch, who just posted a video about 3-4 hours ago at time of recording, adding that Metir has a singular eye with a crux right through the middle, which adds, I think, quite a bit to the description. And finally, here at the very end, after going back through and making sure that I have finally made sure that everything is in here, even including the trailer, I would like to thank FromSoft for not dropping any significant new lore with this new fucking trailer. Jesus Christ, I need a nap. And also several doctors. For the record, I made this video with the Tommy Tallarico method, where I did audio first, and then structured the video around it, with no actual script for what the visual should be on the set. So feel free to make fun of me for how shit a job I did in the comments. I'm sure that'll be a fun time. Also, seriously, if you sat through all 45 plus minutes of this, go watch the other thing. It's in the description. Just go click on it. It's a science paper. It's less than 2 minutes. You sat through 45, going on 46 minutes of me talking about worms in Elden Ring. Go listen to me talk about the science paper. Have fun. Happy holidays, and thank you again to Ohmster. You can go find them at Ohmster on twitch.tv. And she is the reason why Worm Guy and Calvaria exist. So if you'd like her to do anything for you, she's kind of incredible and is also the reason why any of part of this video was not terrible to look at. So go check her out. You can also find us on Blue Sky. I'm jennyazoth.bsky.social, and she's om64.bsky.social. That's OM, not 0M. Also, check me out on twitch.tv/JennyAzoth. That one's with an underscore just like here. I do voice work. If you like Homestuck, I'm going to be in the new SawCon trailers as Cross from crossover from Alabaster the Doom timeline. Go check me out. It's extremely normal and not autistic at all. I'm not autistic. Why would you ask such a thing?